Let's talk about Cactus Jack.
Yeah.
I love the. I want to hear the origins. Right, I've read it in your book. We've all seen the idea of Dude Love,
Yeah.
but you're not going to start with that.
Yeah,
And the origin of the name Cactus Jack has to make you smile. Share that with
it
us.
is. It's a fun story. I think in 82 or 83, I ordered some kind of wrestling game out of the back of Pro Wrestling Illustrated or one of the George Napolitano magazines. And it would come to your house, and it was like the first of the wrestling board or strategy
Yeah.
games. And they did not use wrestlers' real, their gimmick names, but they would be close enough so that you knew who they were talking about. And the move sets would be very similar, like a Dusty Rhodes instead. It would have a different name.
Yes.
Instead of Bionic Elbow, they might call it the Titanic Elbow, but it was clearly Dusty's move set. But there were a few optional cards where you could create your own characters. And my dad's name was Jack Foley. And so I created a character named Cactus Jack. At that time, like a lot of teenagers, 17-year-olds, 16, 17-year-olds, I wasn't having an easy time communicating with my dad, but wrestling was that bridge, as it has been to so many people. And it's such a wonderful thing about wrestling. And for everyone who dislikes it or dismisses it out of hand, it's like, then you're dismissing the entire intergenerational relationship that wrestling improves. And I
Yes.
believe in that wholeheartedly. So we watched wrestling together. We played this wrestling game where he was Cactus Jack. And the other second part of the equation is that my friends would never really feel comfortable in my house because my dad was the athletic director and was seen as something of a disciplinarian and a hard ass, I think it'd be safe to say. And I told my friends that no, he's not like that. Like at home, it's completely different. Like he likes to be called Cactus Jack, specifically because I wanted to see the look on my dad's face when one of my friends came over and called him Cactus
I
Jack.
love that.
So I was just looking for one of my friends to have an unfortunate experience with my dad. When I say a hard ass, I was never struck. I got the wooden spoon a few times, but after the age of 4, I don't think there was ever any need to, my mom would go to the wooden spoon. Okay, mom, we do the
Begging off.
begging off. But my dad, he could make an entire section of high school students sit down with just a glance. He didn't allow any stomping of the bleachers, which every school does.
Yes.
The Ward Melville fans started stomping, and they were like tough guys with their first dates or whatever. He'd give him the look, that whole section.
It's amazing.
He had that command. So the Cactus Jack name was a way to honor my dad, a way hopefully to make put one of my friends in a really awkward position. And it was also like the most generic name I could find, taken from the Kirk Douglas role in Arnold Schwarzenegger's first movie. It was called The Villain. And now in recent re-releases, it's known as Cactus Jack because the character was so much fun. The name Slade, Cactus Jack Slade. And so I just took that name, borrowed it from that movie. I was Cactus Jack Foley. So my original autographs have Cactus in not parentheses, quotation marks.
Yes.
Cactus Jack Foley. And I was just going to be Cactus Jack until I felt like I'd learned enough to become Dude Love. And I knew that could take a while. I was pretty realistic about that. So at Clarksburg, West Virginia, at the Clarksburg Armory.
I love this.
Where else but, wrestling. Ring announcer Hank Hudson asked me my name. I said, I'm Cactus Jack. He said, where are you from? I said, Bloomington, Indiana, which is where I was born. Hank happens to work full-time. His real job is in a post office. He goes, there are no cactuses in Indiana. He goes, what about Tucson, Arizona? And then he goes, wait, I think there's a Truth or Consequences, Arizona. And then he corrects himself within seconds. He goes, actually, that's Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. And I went, that's it. And that became, I think, one of the great fictitious.
Yes.
It's a real place, and I've
What a
stayed
great
there.
name,
Yeah,
too.
it's such a great name. It used to be known as Hot Springs because of, fabled hot springs I bathed in just this past summer. And I think the deal was if Bob Barker came to town, they agreed to change the name to Truth or Consequences, or T or C as the locals call it. And I told that fib for so many years that the good people of Truth or Consequences came to accept me as one of their own, actually put my photo in like the trophy cabinet,
Oh, wow.
even though there was no record of me ever having stepped foot in T or C until just a few years ago.
Did you, it was popular back then. I don't know that it's as important now, but I know it still exists. Did you work your height or weight? Because they used to say, standing so and so,
Yeah.
leg such and such.
Well, I was a legit 6'4", right?
So you were cool with sticking with.
I was cool with 6'4", but they usually just announced your weight.
I see.
And I think at the time of my first match, I was 220. I didn't really have much to eat. I didn't have really a lot of money. And Shane Douglas, bless his heart, he was, really, he was into the dieting and the nutrition. And so Shane would sometimes help me out on the food aspect. But I was relatively, light, 226. And I think in the history of WWE, I'm the only guy to come in being billed as being shorter than he is, because I've always struck people as being like 5'10". And there are times when I'm in the ring with someone who's 6'4", like Triple H,
Yeah.
and I look to be about 6 inches shorter. But all the characters, except maybe Dude, who was loud and proud, Mankind especially, was gnarled over. And then you take the gnarled over aspect and combine it with working with Undertaker or Kane.
Right.
And I look to be 10 inches shorter instead of, 5 inches shorter.
Right.
Especially when I first came to WWE, I had lifts put into my boots, and I would go out to learn to walk on these lifts. And it felt pretty powerful to be 6'7" or so. Then I realized, hold on a second. If they wanted a guy who was 6'7", there are a lot of guys like that. They're hiring me to get into Undertaker's head.
Yeah.
And I can best do that by, not using a wedge that, stymies my already greatly stymied physical abilities.
Around the same time is when you launch the now infamous Wanted Dead or Alive t-shirt.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about the creation of that shirt?
Hey, that's Bruce Savini. And when ECW saw the difference a really good t-shirt could make, they started working with Bruce. And I'll say that shirt like spurred on the improvement of t-shirt designs across the entire wrestling landscape. And of course, WWE had great designs. WCW tended not to. I thought they were night and day in quality of the designs and imagination. And but I'd say that it showed that what a good shirt could do, and how when I'd go to Japan, I'd maybe only made 300 a night, but I was probably making that in t-shirt sales as well.
Right.
So it was almost doubling my take home pay. But if you would have told me in 1995 that t-shirt would still be around,
that's crazy.
28 years later and still doing business. Yeah, just crazy. He came up with this cool design, and it worked.